Welcome back to Revise and Resubmit. You know what that means, right? It's time for another weekend book review deep dive.
Oh, yes. Time to get those pages turning.
You got it.
Yeah.
And today...
I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, today we're diving into Kairos by Jenny Erpenbeck.
Oh, a fascinating choice.
Winner of the 2024 Booker Prize.
Wow, it's got to be good.
This novel, it's about a love affair, a young woman, and an older man, and it all unfolds in East Germany, right before the Berlin Wall comes down.
So we're talking love, history, and probably a whole lot of tension.
Exactly. So get ready, because we're about to explore a world on the edge of transformation where personal lives and political upheaval, well, they collide.
I love it when those two worlds come together. You know what really struck me right off the bat? It's how Erpenbeck uses that preface to set the whole mood of the book.
Yeah, the preface, I noticed that too.
It's like she's sorting through these old boxes, filled with stuff from a past. Love, letters, photos, even a sugar cube. It's almost like she's inviting us, the readers, to sift through these memories with her, preparing us for what's to come.
That's such a great observation. It does give you that feeling of nostalgia, but also a little bit of, maybe a hint of sadness right from the start.
A little bittersweet, for sure. It's like we're about to uncover something precious, but maybe also a bit painful.
Okay, well, let's jump right in then, shall we? Chapter 1 introduces our main players, Katharina and Hans, and their first meeting. Let's just say it's not your typical love story.
No, not at all. Picture this. A crowded bus, rainy day in East Berlin. Katharina, she's 19, gets jostled against Hans, a much older man. Even her putting on her jacket becomes this awkward, charged moment. Erpenbeck really captures that spark of attraction, but in this subtle, powerful way.
And then Hans just leaves her there after they get off the bus. Like, what? Talk about leaving us hanging.
I know, right? Katharina's left at a streetlight, wondering if she totally misread the whole thing. Totally.
But then, plot twist, he comes back and asks her to spend the evening with him.
Oh, here we go.
It turns out his wife and son are conveniently out of town.
Classic forbidden love story, right? With that added layer of East German intrigue.
Absolutely. So what's the vibe like when they get to his apartment?
Well, Hans's apartment, it becomes this symbolic space throughout the book. It's their sanctuary, a world away from the pressures of East German society.
I can already see it.
We learn he's a writer, a music lover. He even plays Chopin for her.
Sounds romantic.
It does, but there's this underlying tension. Hans sets some ground rules, makes it clear their relationship can only be occasional, no public acknowledgement. Keep it under wraps.
Wow, that's pretty intense. Does she just accept that?
She does, and it's fascinating to see how she navigates this whole situation. Throughout the book, we see this push and pull, their intense connection versus the restrictions, imposed by Hans, by their circumstances, and by East German society itself.
Okay, so chapters 2 and 3, their affair keeps developing. What's the dynamic between them like?
Oh, it's complex for sure. You see Hans's need for control. He wants to dictate the terms of their relationship. Katharina, at least at first, she seems to go along with it. But Erpenbeck, she's clever. She weaves in these subtle details about their society, shortages, the wall, the feeling of being watched by the Stasi, secret police. It all adds to this underlying tension.
Right, it's always there, lurking in the background.
Exactly.
Okay, now chapters 4 through 6 throw in a bit of a curveball. Katharina takes a trip to Budapest with her mother.
Ah, yes, Budapest. That feels like a turning point, doesn't it?
It does.
First, there's the physical separation from Hans. It just amps up the anticipation for when they'll see each other again.
And they're planning to meet, right?
Secretly in Budapest, adding a whole other layer of, intrigue, you could say. And that scene in the Schinkelstube restaurant, remember that?
Oh, yes. It's so intimate. Like, they were the only two people there.
Exactly. And it's important that this happens in a neutral space, outside of East Berlin, outside of Hans's apartment. They're pushing boundaries, both literally and figuratively. Plus, this is where Hans introduces Katharina to Eisler's 14 Ways of Describing Rain, which subtly links back to that rainy first encounter on the bus. It becomes this recurring theme, almost like their secret language.
I love how Erpenbeck uses those little details, to add layers of meaning. It's like everything has this deeper significance that just keeps coming back.
She's a master of that.
Chapters 7 through 10, Katharina experiences the West for the first time, visiting Cologne. That must be a huge culture shock.
Oh, definitely. She's overwhelmed by the abundance, the consumerism, especially compared to the austerity of East Berlin.
It's a whole different world.
But it's not just about the material stuff, right? It's the freedom, the choices, the sheer variety of life in the West. Crossing that border, it's not just physical for Katharina. It's a mental shift.
So how does that experience change her perspective, on her relationship with Hans and her own life back in East Germany?
It creates this feeling of dissonance. She's been exposed to a different way of life, one that challenges those limitations she's accepted, both in her relationship and within East German society. Suddenly, the boundaries she's living within feel even more, confining.
I can see how that would happen.
Yeah.
Okay, then we move on to chapters 11 through 16. The focus shifts back to their relationship, and things start to, unravel. What happens?
Well, Hans is off on vacation, with his wife and son. Katharina is wrestling with jealousy and uncertainty. And Hans, he doesn't exactly help the situation. He starts revealing things about his past relationships.
Ouch, that's kind of sting.
Right, it's like he's trying to manage her expectations or maybe remind her of where she stands.
Not good.
Not good at all. And then chapter 17 through 23, the world outside their little bubble really starts heating up. It's 1989, and East Germany is changing fast.
Right, we see the demolition of Hitler's bunker, protests, the sense of unrest, like things are about to explode.
Exactly. And how does Katharina react to all this?
I was just going to ask that.
She gets involved in student activism, adds another layer of complexity to their already complicated situation.
It's like their personal struggles are mirroring what's happening in society.
Precisely. Katharina's fighting for change, while Hans, he's more of an observer.
Okay, then bam. Chapters 24 through 28, their relationship implodes.
It all comes crashing down.
Tell me everything.
Hans discovers Katharina is seeing another man, and it devastates him. It's like all those unspoken tensions, all the anxieties, they just boil over. Their personal world falls apart at the same time that the political landscape is undergoing this massive shift.
Wow, that's intense. How does Erpenbeck handle their breakup?
It's messy, a lot of anger, hurt, accusations flying back and forth. Her language is raw, powerful. You really feel the pain and confusion.
So we're left with this feeling of loss, this fragmentation in their relationship and in the world around them.
Exactly. And it's brilliant how Erpenbeck weaves those two things together. She shows how personal upheaval and political upheaval can mirror and intensify each other.
This has been an incredible deep dive so far. Kairos sounds like a truly captivating, thought-provoking novel. What awaits us in the final chapters? Yeah, Katharina and Hans, their story is far from over.
Not at all. As we get into these final chapters, it's like the fallout from their breakup is still happening, and not just for them, for the whole country too.
Right, everything's changing.
It's really interesting how Erpenbeck connects the end of their relationship with the fall of the Berlin Wall.
Both falling apart at the same time.
Exactly. Both Katharina and Germany are stepping into this unknown territory, this new sense of freedom, but also a lot of uncertainty.
So where does Katharina go from here?
We see her going back to places she's been before, like the Frankfurt station toilets. Remember where she had that breakdown after Hans left her on the platform years ago?
Oh, yeah, I remember that scene.
It's as if she's retracing her steps, trying to understand the past, trying to find where she belongs in this new world.
Like a pilgrimage back to a place that holds a lot of meaning for her.
I think so. And then there's this really poignant scene where she imagines her wedding day with Hans.
Oh, man, that was heartbreaking, but also kind of beautiful.
It was. I think Erpenbeck is exploring the power of what if, Katharina is dealing with the loss of a future she thought she might have, a future that doesn't seem possible anymore.
It's that longing for something that's lost forever.
Exactly. And while Katharina is lost in these thoughts, Hans is wrestling with his own demons.
What's going on with him?
He's haunted by the choices he made, the ways he hurt Katharina. He even tries to justify his actions, blaming her for how things ended.
Through those cassette recordings, right?
Yeah, those recordings. It's tough to listen to, but it gives us this glimpse into what's going on inside him.
It's like he's trying to rewrite their story, even though it's over.
He wants to control the narrative, even now. But what's striking is that even as he tries to make himself feel better, there's this underlying regret, this acknowledgement that their relationship mattered to him, even though he tried to keep it at a distance.
So both Katharina and Hans are trying to make sense of their past while the world around them is changing so fast.
The Berlin Wall comes down, East and West Germany are reunited.
A huge moment in history.
And it's happening right as they're going through their own personal journeys. Erpenbeck captures it all so well, the excitement, the confusion, the possibilities, but also the worries and uncertainties that come with such a massive change.
It's like the ground is literally shifting under their feet, and they're both trying to find their balance.
Exactly. And in the midst of it all, their Kairos, that time they shared, it continues to shape who they are, even as their lives go in different directions.
So like proof that connections, even ones that end, can leave a mark on us.
Absolutely. And as we reach the end of the book, Erpenbeck leaves us with this feeling that the past is always present, you know? There are no simple answers, no perfect endings. We're left thinking about the choices we make, the paths we take, both personally and as a society.
It's a powerful ending that makes you think about the human experience.
It does. So we spent all this time with Kairos unraveling its layers, but now I think it's time to talk about the author herself, Jenny Erpenbeck. What makes her voice so unique? Jenny Erpenbeck, she's truly a force in literature today.
I know, I've heard her life story is pretty interesting.
It is. She was born in East Berlin, so she has this direct connection to the events in Kairos, you know?
Makes sense.
Her own experiences during that time, they really come through in her writing. It's raw, authentic.
So she's not just writing about history, she lived it.
Exactly. And that's a big part of what makes her voice so powerful. But beyond that personal connection, she's just a brilliant writer, period. Kairos is just her latest success. She has other amazing novels, too.
And speaking of success, we can't ignore the big one, right? Kairos won the 2024 Booker Prize.
Huge accomplishment.
What does an award like that mean for Erpenbeck and the book?
The Booker Prize, it's one of the most prestigious literary awards out there. Winning it puts a book on the map globally. It shows the writing is top-notch, the story is original, and it connects with people on a deep level.
So for Kairos to win, it's got to be saying something pretty profound.
Absolutely. It means this story, set in a specific time and place, resonated with judges from all over the world. That tells you the themes are universal: love, loss, navigating relationships when everything's changing around you.
It also brings Jenny Erpenbeck's voice to a wider audience, and I think that's really exciting. It shows how important translated literature is, reminds us that great stories can come from anywhere.
Couldn't agree more. Kairos, thanks to Michael Hofmann's translation, it opens up this world that some English readers might not have access to otherwise. We experience history through a different perspective, connect with human emotions that go beyond borders and languages.
So for our listeners who are now intrigued by Kairos, give us your final pitch. Why should they read it?
If you want a book that will stay with you long after you finished it, that will challenge you, move you, then Kairos is it. It's beautifully written, thought-provoking, offers a truly unique perspective on love, history, and just what it means to be human.
Beautifully said. Kairos makes us think about those defining moments in our lives, the choices we make, the things that shape our destinies. It reminds us that even when the world is in chaos, it's those personal connections, those shared moments that really define who we are.
Perfect way to sum it up.
I think so too. And for all of you who enjoyed this deep dive into Kairos, make sure you subscribe to Revise and Resubmit on Spotify, Amazon Prime Music, and Apple Podcasts. We'll be back next week with another weekend book review, exploring a different Booker Prize winner. Until then, happy reading.